Hello there, you're now with me, Handy Gui for TVS News Set 5. Let's begin with our top story. A 42-year-old man was arrested by the Cebu Region 5 Marine Police team on suspicion of diesel fuel embezzlement activities involving a total of 170,000 ringgit in an contraband operation which was conducted at around 9 a.m. at Jalan Kapur in Cebu.
Cebu District Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Zulkifli Suhaili said, upon further inspection, the team discovered a 4-wheel drive, 12 blue plastic barrels suspected to contain diesel oil, 5 empty blue plastic barrels and 3 white plastic barrels containing diesel oil with a total capacity of 21,000 litres. In addition, the man had also failed to produce any valid documents to the ownership of the control items. As such, the items were seized with an estimated value of 173,450 ringgit. And the man and the seized items were then handed over to the investigating officer from the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs, KPDN HEP Cebu Division, for investigation and further action. The case is being investigated under the Control of Supplies Act 1961.
Now, the organization of the Creative and Innovative Group KIK Convention among government departments and agencies has proven to be the right step in improving the efficiency and effectiveness of the government's service delivery.
Deputy Premier of Sarawak, Dato' Amar Awang Tengah Ali Hassan said through the text speech read by the Natural Resources and Urban Development Ministry Permanent Secretary, Dato' Zaidi Mahdi on Thursday, August 18th.
Inovasi ini juga merupakan salah satu agenda yang telah digariskan di bawah PCDS Post-COVID Development Strategy 2030, di mana antara hasil utama inovasi yang disasarkan adalah pertama, increase R&D expenditure as percentage of GDP. Yang kedua, double the number of patents filed and approved. Tiga, 3,000 full-time equivalent researcher in R&D per million people in Sarawak. Dan yang keempat, 1,000 high technology startup and proof of concept (POC) projects successfully launched via Innovation Hub commercialized.
Adding further, he said that it is also driven by data and innovation in 2030, in which people will enjoy economic prosperity, social inclusion, and environmental sustainability. The convention, which commenced on August 16 and ended on August 18th, is an initiative aimed at boosting performance and improving efficiency and effectiveness in the delivery of the government services. The government had previously recognized the initiative produced by civil servants, as well as provided various awards for the production of new innovative and creative ideas through the Sarawak Civil Service Innovation Convention Awards. The convention involved 24 KIK groups from departments and agencies under the supervision of the ministry, namely 5 KIK groups from the Forestry Department, 13 KIK groups from the Land and Survey Department, 3 KIK groups from the Sarawak Forestry Corporation (SFC), and 3 KIK groups from Sarawak Timber Industry Development Corporation (STIDC).
Welcome back. Now, there are many in the job market who have to live with the minimum wage, which is not enough to keep up with the rising cost of living due to inflationary pressures. They are set against the confluence of supply chain issues. This is partly driven by geo-economic manipulations and the impact of extreme weather patterns, together with the latest geopolitical flare-ups in Ukraine, among others.
Talking about, first of all, the impact of inflation on the minimum wage. Now, just to unpack it a little bit more, the hike in minimum wage. Many experts have come out to say that it will contribute to greater inflation or the greater rise in prices in the long run. This is something that I agree with, especially with such a large 25% increase from 1,200 to 1,500. Not only that, there are other unintended consequences when it comes to minimum wage, the rise in minimum wage, the shutting down of smaller businesses. Also, there's a possibility that low-skilled workers might be replaced with automation, leading to more unemployment, actually. So this is the unintended consequence of the hike in minimum wage, which is supposed to promote social equity. But it might eventually lead to these low-skilled workers losing their jobs, being replaced by automation, for example, where it's possible. Also, what we have read and observed in the market is that there has also been a reduction in overall worker benefits to offset the overhead cost in the raise of minimum wage. Now, unfortunately, this is something that, of course, is against the law, but it's something that's being done in the industry. And unfortunately, workers are the one who bear the brunt of this. So you're trying to raise the minimum wage for a better equity, but then at the end of the day, it's being cancelled out by a reduction in other worker benefits, just because employers are trying to make ends meet. They are trying to offset the new increased costs. Now, a final issue or unintended consequence is that consumers would bear the cost of this higher minimum wage. And just to go a bit deeper on this, what it means is, although the nominal wage has increased, so like 1,200 to 1,500, yet because prices of items are being increased to offset this increase of minimum wage, it will then cancel out the increase in nominal wage. What we call this is the debate between the comparison between real wages and nominal wages. Nominal wages have increased, however, the purchasing power from this wage increase did not increase, but it fell instead because of the rise in prices. At the end of the day, real wages has fallen instead of rising together with nominal wages. Now, this is our worry, that in the long run, this is happening to our economy. So those who enjoy, for example, an increase in their nominal wages, they do not actually experience the fullness of this increase in purchasing power too.
The level of productivity is the most fundamental and important factor determining our standard of living. Raising it allows people to get what they want faster or get more in the same amount of time. Higher productivity growth thus represents a positive supply shock that lowers inflationary pressures. Benedict, can you explain to us how productivity is related to inflation?
Now, coming back to the second question on productivity, in terms of how productivity affects inflation. Interestingly, I believe that when there is a greater productivity in the industry, there's a growth in productivity, it will definitely actually help to taper down inflation. Why? Let's unpack this. Producing more goods and services, when we produce more and more goods and services in a shorter time, it will cut cost per unit. This in turn will raise supply, and this will put downward pressure on prices. What we call this is productivity growth deflation. And this can be achieved by nurturing an environment conducive to innovation. And how can this environment or this ecosystem be nurtured? What is important is that governments need to incentivize investment to boost productivity. For example, it can be cutting corporate tax, or it could be developing strategic plans for different regions to boost the productivity of each region, a strategic regional productivity growth direction. Also, governments could incentivize entrepreneurship to boost more startups, for example, more businesses. Now, this will go a long way in producing a higher growth in supply so that it can meet the increasing demand right now and address inflation. I hope that answers your question.
Now, printing more money seems like a simple solution to the problem of inflation. Unfortunately, the economy doesn't work that way. Benedict, why can't the government just print more money? Can you explain it in a layman's term to the general public?
All right, why can't the government print more money? Now, the issue with government printing more money is that it doesn't commensurate or it doesn't result in real goods and services. It doesn't result in a supply of boost of gross domestic product. Although, yes, it pushes up G, but in the long run, it creates a lot more inflation because you do not have enough goods and services to commensurate to the increase of cash distribution in the market or the cash flow in the market. So cash is circulating all about, but there's not enough goods and services. What does this result in then? This pushes up prices, causing inflation in the long run. So this is something that is really not advisable. I think during the pandemic, there's been a lot of advice coming in to do that. Why don't we go for more quantitative easing? Why don't we get the government to print more money? Especially the system helicopter money. Where you go up with a helicopter, you throw as much cash as you can to give as much aid to the people, to give as much aid to the businesses, to keep them all afloat by providing cash. But at the end of the day, our institution, by Al-Amanah, together with Center for Market Education, we have warned repeatedly since 2021 that this is certainly not sustainable because it will create inflation. And this is what we are experiencing now as a result of that. When there is a lockdown, when there's non-stop lockdowns, especially a one-size-fits-all lockdown, it's not a targeted approach. What happens is so many businesses, so many industries have to close. And government has to step in to plug that hole, by giving as much money as possible. But these industries cannot produce increased supply. So when there is an over demand with increase of cash, but not enough supply, it causes inflation. So should government print money? No, definitely not.
See the world closer with TVS, as we bring you the latest news update both locally and internationally by heading on to our official website at TVSTVMY or follow us on our social media platforms. That's all the time we have for TVS News at 5. I'm Handy Gui. Thank you for watching.